So my name is Dio. Just it's shorter, simpler, and cheaper to pronounce like that. So let's talk about embedded analytics. Yeah, this is me. I'm in software development for a couple of years already. I remember the things when there were no computers, no books, no phones. But despite this thing, I decided to be a developer. My background is, of course, databases. I started with databases, and when I started, so it became important to me. I have a question to the audience. How many times you think I've created or tried to prepare this introduction video? Just guess. No. More than one, more than 10, more than 15. How much? 20. More than 20. 50. Something around 50. It was a surprise for me as well. I thought it would be much more easier. But when you're trying to do something, you want to do it better, right? Why I'm telling this, I like to refer to the story of Thomas Edison, who was trying about 1,000 times before he invented electric bulb. 1,000 times. So to create and find good things takes time. So why I'm talking about this, very soon you will get to it. Because as a developer, I write a code, I push this code to production and forget about it. And the biggest thing about that is that maybe I test, but usually not. Maybe I refactor, usually not. And when I push these things to the production, maybe it's about me because I came from ages, but I think very soon you will see that we have a lot of systems around which are actually built using the same mindset. So we will talk about the embedded analytics. We'll extend embedded analytics into a little bit wider services for the customers. I will explain why it is important. We'll talk about several ways how to build into your products. I hope it will be a aha moment for you, because it was a aha moment for me probably 6 years ago. And if there will be some time, we will, of course, talk about examples. So what is embedded analytics? I hope you know, but let's be on the same page. So it's about the providing business intelligence tools and building into your product. And what is business intelligence tools? The idea of business intelligence tools was developed probably 20 years ago, maybe something around that. And the idea is to give possibility to analyze the data and give access to the data to create insights, provide some reporting for management, of course. So there are a lot of things what business intelligence tools can do. Dashboards, create dashboards. Nowadays you can publish your dashboards or KPIs or reports into the cloud and so on. But most important and biggest idea of business intelligence tools is about the self-service. Self-service for data users. Idea came from the probably 15 years ago. There was an idea to give possibility to drill down reports to the managers. So developers, data engineers could do nothing. But it never worked because it was too difficult, and it's still too difficult. And now is another idea just about the embedding self-service tools and giving it to the customers. First of all, I think it's a very good idea because if we talk especially about the business customers, because business customers always ask questions about their data. Probably not too much about simple customers or, how to say, individuals, not the companies, but big companies are just requiring the data. And all my talk about embedded analytics would be about the giving possibility to analyze data for the companies mostly, but of course ideas can be used for the individuals. And embedded means that you're just taking the business intelligence tools and just infusing in your product, into your production. Why it is important? First of all, if you have, and if you are lucky and you have a lot of customers, we keep asking questions about how they do. It's about what products they sell better. It's about what customers they have. It's more or less about business to business, right? And of course, based on that, they're doing some insights. They're measuring their business, and they're pushing and making their business a little bit better. Another thing is that is definitely lowering operational costs, because the customers always ask questions. It will never stop. They're asking for different kind of data slices, combinations of dimensions and metrics, and therefore it's a good idea just to push it out of your environment to the customers, give them self-service tools, so they can do everything by themselves. Next thing is that if you have such kind of service, when your customers can get to their data, analyze this data, visualize this data, export this data, and use this data for integrating their products, so you keep this customer and you're retaining this customer within your platform. This is an important thing to have, right? And of course, not much of the products or platforms can give similar to Google Analytics experience to their customers. Therefore, it's a very good competitive advantage. And you probably will be surprised. I know most of you are using Google Analytics to some extent to see what's happening on your website. But for the huge business companies, Google's data platform is not for free. They're getting a lot of income actually from giving the sophisticated platform, which of course about the self-service, of course about KPIs, productions, data APIs, and data exports. And they get fees probably which starts from 100,000 euros per month, per year. So it's important. And according to all the research, so companies tend to increase and have bigger revenue if they apply this approach. Okay, so we are on the same page about the embedded analytics and what it is. Let's talk about the ways how to get to that. First of all, there's a possibility to use existing third-party tools, like Tableau, for example, and put inside your product. We'll see how it works. Then, of course, you are developers, you can create on your own. And we'll talk about that. I like these stories, because actually it's never-ending story about the development things, because it's about the reinventing the bicycle over and over and over. Yeah, and I like this, because sometimes it's too difficult to create and to provide such features to your product for your customers. And you will be surprised, but in most companies, the reporting and the things related to the reporting, analytics, and self-service for the customers are at the end of the backlogs. By the way, do you know what this backlog is? Are there Scrum Busters around? No? Who uses the Scrum? Not much. You know, we started using Scrum 10 years ago, and it's still working, but it's still not popular. Why? Good. So the decision drivers actually to choose one of the possible solutions. Of course, it's about customer needs. Sometimes customers asking for the additional analytics and possibilities. Sometimes they're not. Very much, and in most of cases, customers are satisfied by just giving them dumps of the data in Excel forms, in CSV files, and that's it. I knew the company, what I'm saying, because I knew the company. It bankrupted. It was a very successful company established in Israel, who was giving the data, it's from advertising business, giving the data for their customers in CSV files. And this was only one way to share the data from CSV files. They bankrupted probably a year ago. I don't know why, but it happened. Good, so next thing is about the price. So later on, you will see how much it can cost and why. Legacy, of course, all the developers have one common thing, most of them. It's about being protective. And when you have some legacy stuff, you are protecting it somehow, all the time. I don't know why it's happening, but it is so. Good, so let's start with existing business intelligence tools. And this is not the complete picture of it. I took the most known things. I like these guys. I worked with Business Objects, Jaspersoft, a little bit with Pentaho, ClickSense, or Power BI, of course, and so on. They are very similar. Idea of very similar. The pricing is very similar. Of course, they are better. But these guys started to create reporting and analytic tools something about 20 years ago. They have a lot of experiences, interesting features, cloud deployments, data pipelines, cubes, and so on. But you will be surprised, and this is why it is in dark, because it's dark ages coming, and you will be surprised what challenges it brings actually to integrate all of these existing products into your platform. I made this needle exactly like that, because it's very painful when you get this kind of needle into something. Okay, let's start. So if you have some kind of business intelligence tool around, let's not mention the names. So there are 3 ways of how to embed the things. First of all, most of the embedding software provides the desktop applications. These desktop applications can work on Windows. This application can work on OS. Not sure about Android, but this is very standalone applications where you can which you can give to your customer. I'm not sure how it will work if you have 1,000 of customers, because there are a lot of deployment questions. So most popular way is actually to use the iframe method. So meaning that in the browser, you just include your dashboards created previously by the business intelligence tools and so on. And code level, of course, which requires the development, but never heard about that. Configuration white labeling. And white labeling, it means that when you're using the third-party software, you need to make it look the same as your brand. It's a very simple idea, but actually it's due to limited APIs, you cannot do it in an automated way. Wow, this is one of my favorite. So most of the licensing models and user licensing models of the business intelligence tools are user-based. It means your customer will be customer of third-party business tool provider, right? If you have 1,000 customers, so you will have to pay for 1,000 users. But, well, let's leave that. Maybe your managers will say, that's fine, let's do it. The costs are good. However, from the development perspective, you need to have integration with user systems. First of all, you have your own user systems, your own rights, customer types, permissions. And then when the new customer or user arrives into your platform, you need to manage it to be created on the business intelligence tools platform. And of course, the charges will be applied. So basically, you have 2 databases of the users, which needs to be synchronized. I missed the ownership of the user. By the way, this is a very good question, because when the user gets into a system and uses the third-party software to analyze the data, who owns the user? I think it's not you. It's a third-party BI tool, right? And they have all the statistics, all the user behavior, and they take this behavior to analyze on their own. Even the statistic is not available for you. Good, security. You'll be surprised, but actually when you need to switch the context for the user, when you're talking about the iframe, it is recommended to put your credentials in the URL. It's not only about username, it's about password too. So how much it is secure, it's under question, but very interesting place is about the data context, because each your customer in your database owns some kind of data, which should not be seen by other customers, maybe competitors in between. Therefore, you need to figure out how to make this work. Remember, you have your user, then you have user of business intelligence. This business intelligence goes to the database, and somehow you need to connect the context and split the data. This is a hard thing to do, because third-party business providers, sometimes they give an expression things. You can describe how it works in expressions. Sometimes it's a mapping thing. Sometimes it's for separate users, you need to create a separate data marts, which is headache. Wow, transparency. Transparency is a good thing, because when something is not working, you need to figure it out. But you remember, you have your platform, you have identified the iframe. This iframe takes the information from the kind of server, and server gets the data from somewhere. So you need to get it through to understand what's wrong. It's difficult. Another thing is what's happening with your reports. There are ways how to get most popular reports, dashboards, or KPIs for the understanding which are most popular. But if you ask what dimensions or metrics are most popular, you will not get the answer. Actually, this is a difficult thing to have even in a different setup. Good, scaling. Well, yes. I already mentioned the licensing. If you have 1,000, that's more, maybe it's acceptable, because usual standard price per user is something about the 10 euros per month, something. But if you have a little bit more, if you like, so you'll be, not in bad shape. Business intelligence tools had made huge progress on the data pipelines, on the storing the data, processing this data, to give the quick answers about the insights. And they are very good at that. However, if you need to scale it, it's a difficult thing. Much more difficult probably, because all the third-party tools, they are not open for you. You don't understand what's happening there. It's a black boxes. Yes, we talked about black boxes, and I saw several questions about that. You cannot impact on this. So this is difficult. If you are getting to the big data, for example, or you using the sharding for your customers, so it's a very huge headache actually to go there. And of course, ownership of all this thing. I'll touch a little bit earlier, because if you push user out of your platform somehow, it means you are not owning it. Probably that's it about the challenges of the business intelligence tools and how to embed it. I still think in some cases it's possible and useful to have, especially for the prototyping, when you don't have nothing created yet, but you have especially a good model of the data and some customers who want to use it via browser. So you can use that. And conclusions. So it's not trivial to launch it, because embedding analytics started to be created only a couple of years ago. That's why these models and these challenges still exist. Of course, there are much more tools than was on the screen. I mentioned it was about 100. But those guys just now realized that all these business insights, all the reports, data models, and data should be shared not only within your company, but also with your customer, right, to retain it. Well, when you have this kind of thing, so it's definitely difficult to operate and to maintain, and especially to debug. But, well, in some cases, it's okay. Many times I ask the vendors to provide the data APIs. For example, if you have a data model which sits on your database, why you cannot get to this data through the APIs? And in most cases, it was answered no. There are no data APIs, no possibility to get using the development frameworks and get this data. This is a huge actually problem. Some of the tools are working with data exports okay, some are not. Good. If it is so inconvenient to use third-party tools, let's talk about the building. Building on your own. I think you will like it. Let's imagine you will start with something like this. So you have predefined reports. You're smart enough to use the APIs to get to it, and you have only one database. As you see, this is the season 1, episode 1. It's just starting. I think most of you have seen this movie, IT Crowd, right? It's funny. But if Netflix will just take this idea of repeating story and somehow make it show, it should be definitely funny for the first episodes, but then it will turn to drama. And I'll explain why. Good, so when you get this task, developers are very happy. Woo! Let's do that. It's simple. It is really simple. When you have few dashboards or kind of tables or KPIs, there are a lot of JavaScript frameworks, open source and not open source, and you can just take that. Next thing is, well, if you're smart enough, you will use APIs. If you're not smart enough, you will do like this. Yes, it's funny, but sometimes it's funny to find that the database management system is responsible for generating user interface. I have seen it several times, and not sure about I see the faces, but there are still companies where this code sitting inside the database. So it's a kind of, well, if we talk about the database, so nobody cares about this, somehow because those guys, JavaScripters, don't care about the data, usually. That's why for them it's just one main question, how to get to this data. And if they can, they write kind of correct SQL statements, and that's it. So, looks easy. Well, season 2 started, and of course, we have some interesting things. So when you're giving a prototype to your manager says, whoa, that looks good. Let's do something more intelligent stuff. Let's add dashboards. And you say, ooh, that's cool. Let's add more. Have you seen the Plotly? The Plotly is a great thing, actually. It's open source. And you can use pivoting function and components for your data. It's just great. Well, I think it's known thing for Microsoft, or microservices. Microservices probably started as a new idea a couple of years ago, maybe 5, maybe 6, something like this. And what's happening actually here, that there are coming different slices and dices of the data. Then what you need to do is just create the microservice API to get the data somewhere from here. Right? And again, everything is simple. Well, and of course, somebody just suggests, wow, look, that's a great thing to have Mongo, for example, in our architecture. Let's put here. Well, why Mongo is so good? It's so easy to work with documents, to put them, to pay them out. Well, and it does very good that. But when you need to get the statistics, it doesn't work too much. Good. Yeah, so why I'm saying that nobody cares about databases? Because it's true. Once you created the data structures here, they never refactored. Never. And by the way, who knows the first law of databases? And you work with databases at all, guys? Yes? You work. You know? Which, can you express it? What is the first law of databases? The first law of database is that database never shrink, they grow. All the time. It's about structures, it's about the data, it's about the dependencies, right? Because here, all these APIs, microservices, they are depending on the structures here and here, and so on. Good, what's happening next? Well, if you're successful and you have more customers, you have new tasks. For example, create report designer. And I made this specially empty because I haven't met any developer who said that the report designer ability to create the reports they made, this is the thing they are proud of. They're trying to hide it because it's so ugly and not working, not covered by tests. It's true. Well, blue dream about what if we will create the APIs and push to the customers, and customers will take the data. When you have a lot of APIs, I need to speed up a little bit. So somebody tries to figure out what's happening here, because all these different slices of the data goes and are reflected to the APIs, right? And what happens? That someone smart saying, wow, let's stop producing the different type of APIs, let's use something smart, GraphQL. GraphQL is a great thing, very great thing. And it was created to solve and to standardize access to the data by having the connectors on access, like working as a gateway. So this GraphQL thing will connect to database, to this one, to this one, to this one, and so on. Well, and when the data warehouse hits the architecture, it's not fun anymore. Because data warehouse contains the statistics, the data is coming here, probably from here, there are a lot of replications, pipelines, and so on. So it's becoming difficult. Well, and you get something like this, which is huge, blah, blah, blah. A lot of databases, a lot of data models, a lot of APIs, a lot of user interface. Yeah, and it's actually, it's a swamp. It's not beautiful, it's beautiful on the picture, but you all know, right? It's a kind of swamp. It's swamp in the data, it's swamp in APIs, and what to do with that. So, will be there more seasons coming? Probably not. You will stay in this swamp forever, probably. And well, we started to think what to do with it. There definitely are good examples how the self-service or embedded analytics can be presented and given to the customers, right? And when you're asking by yourself how, for example, Google is providing so rich data platform, what is their secret? How they support so multiple 1,000 data slices that you just cannot imagine. Where is their solution? They have a lot of data models, they have APIs, they have huge data sets, very large data sets, and all this work somehow. And definitely they manage dependencies because we have analytics, we have self-service analytics, means you can create reports by your own, with predefined reports, KPIs, dashboards, data exports, and so on. And of course, we have full transparency. So, what is Silver Bullet? And basically, we found that there is one interesting small component which is never mentioned. Silver bullet, yeah. And we think it is data API. And all the data services in Google are combined and created around the data API, right? Just imagine, you have one function. Sorry about the data science. There will be no data science, no artificial intelligence, because it's so simple, and this is why it is so beautiful and working. So imagine that you have one function which accepts all the requests for your data. Only one method of API which gets the data or requests of the data. And somehow it finds the database and returns to you. If there are several databases or several data sets, this API stays the same. It's not a API 1, API 2, API 3. It is only one API, right? And I'm talking about this Himalayas thing, which, again, idea came from Google some years ago. And when we understood that, then it started for us being a little bit, wow. So we have different data sets, different data technologies, but they can give an answer about this data through the one gateway. And you see, there is a list of metrics. There is a list of dimensions, some filtering, sorting options. And that's it. Actually, when you're requesting the data, you don't care where the data is and what technology it's served. You need to get this data, use it somehow, maybe to show on the screen, maybe to use on the other components. Is it clear? More or less, right? And you see, this is interesting thing about the request ID. And this thing comes from the user interface. And the request ID later on goes through all the things, and therefore they can understand what's happening in each layer of your architecture, even in database. So I promise that there will be no rocket science. There's no rocket science at all. But if you combine and create all the user interface around this, you definitely will get much more capabilities than you have right now. Okay. I'm sorry. Let's show a little bit more examples how it works, not works, but maybe it looks in the code. So this is the real request. Sorry, real request to the data API, and it's about taking the few metrics and dimensions, adding some filtering options, right? Then it's about giving the sortings. Looks similar, right? And what it does, actually it returns the data, right? You can see like this. Then it's about the data. Underneath, later on you will see, there is a generated SQL. This is utopic idea to create SQL generator. It is. But in some cases it is a SQL, in some cases it's a MongoQL, in some cases something different. But you get the data through the one interface. This is the main idea. Right? And from the code perspective, it looks very similar, by the way, right? This is the C# code. You're just taking the data, and it's about describing the business scope, taking the dimensions, metrics, and returns. That's it. What's next? So our idea, when we understood this, we started to create this engine. An engine actually does very simple things. First of all, it serves as a one gateway, so one function. Then we have data models. Of course, we have data models. And these data models represents logical or business language and how it connects to the physical language of databases. So it's kind of simple. Because data models, you have already data models in most of the business intelligence tools. And I still don't get it why they cannot give you this data model or access to this data model. It's hidden. It shouldn't be like that. So idea is simple. you can run this component in your on-premises or on cloud, as you wish, and you own this component, which is very important. Despite the fact that there are different technologies, this component can choose the right data from the right data source. Right? Of course, the sharding solved. And look what's happened. Most important thing, dependencies. You manage these dependencies because you have no dependencies anymore. Because these guys who create this, they don't know about this thing. Data engineers, data scientists, they don't know about these guys. They have a very clear interface and contract how to manage the things. And for example, if the database sitting is here and we want to introduce the new data warehouse, they even don't need to speak to these guys because they can manage this layer by their own. Simple as that. So there are a lot of benefits. First of all, it's a out-of-the-box solution which already works. You can run it in 5 minutes because it's based on the Docker image. What you need to do is to just create a special configuration on data model, put this data model inside the component, and it runs. So it's simple. If you think a little bit more, by this component, you can adding additional layer on it for the security because it doesn't contain security at all. You can give this data API to the customers. And you will be surprised, you can give this data APIs which will be able to serve any slices and any combinations of the data to the customers in 1 week. Just in 1 week. So it's simple. Data model will stay one, and which is a very interesting point, because no more naming conventions. Oh, by the way, if you have a crap in the namings in the databases, you will be able to fix that by providing one standard model, right? Data sources, we talked about that. And of course, transparency. As it is intermediate layer, you will get all information about what combinations, what metrics, what dimensions, what data sources are used. Very simplistically. More cases, we talked a little bit about it. I'm speeding up because my time is up. Good. This thing is what you need definitely to look at. So example of APIs are sitting here. There is an open sourced solution for you. If you want to play around it, I recommend it because it was developed for a couple of years ago by Slack, and it does absolutely the same. So market is getting to that, slowly but getting to that, and this is an important thing. But this approach will be much more spread very soon because it solves a lot of problems. It gives additional value to your product, and it's again funny component to work with. And of course, we have a local implementation also of these things. You can look here. So, what's about all this? We still need to decide about what we should do with all the third-party things, what we need to do with data APIs and all our architecture. It's a hard topic. So, it depends. When I started to work and being an architect or software architect, I learned this rule. It depends on the legacy code, on the pricing, on the situation, on customer base, on customer type, on customer numbers, on mood, right? Definitely there are business tools, business intelligence tools around, and there are a lot of them. Just need to find it. It takes time. But guys, the main message for this presentation, the data platform toolset is complete. Right now you have user interface, APIs, and of course a lot of databases things. So you just need to reuse the best practices, and you will be able to replicate Google's success to providing data platform. Of course, nothing for free. Probably that's it. Thank you very much. Probably it's time for questions, right?